This summer is set to be huge for Spider-Man fans such as myself. On top of the 25th anniversary of Green Goblin's Last Stand, we'll be getting the much-anticipated Spider-Man Homecoming in July, as well as the character's 55th anniversary in August. But today, I want to focus on an upcoming treat from Disney XD, Marvel's Spider-Man. I plan on eventually doing a week-by-week review on every episode when it airs. And to prep for this new animated show, I will be looking back at all the other Spider-Man animated shows from 1967 to 2017. Today, I'll be starting with the show that inspired all the memes, the Spider-Man 60s cartoon. Here's a little heads up before I begin. At the beginning of all my reviews, I will be explaining my experience with the series and how I familiarize myself with each show. This series was one that came out around 30 years before my time, so I never watched it when it first aired, but I did watch it when I was very young. I remember renting the full series from Netflix. This was at a time when online streaming was not a thing, so I had to impatiently wait for the DVD to arrive at my home. I also remember watching some of the episodes on Marvel.com when all 3 seasons were available on the site. If you wish to watch the series for yourself, you can check out every episode on YouTube. Here's what I've been able to find about the series. It originally aired on Saturday, September 9th, 1967. You know, when Saturday morning cartoons weren't killed by the FCC, and originally aired on ABC. The first season was produced by Grand Trey Lawrence Animation and starred Paul Soles, known for voicing the Hulk, and starring as Stanley in 2008's The Incredible Hulk as Spider-Man. The theme song is one of the most iconic Spider-Man theme songs to date. In fact, out of all the Spider-Man theme songs, this one tends to be most closely associated with the character, and has been referenced in many Spider-Man films to date. The first season had a solid budget for the time, but there were still limitations. Due to production costs, Spider-Man could not have any webbing on his chest. The season had 2 segments per episode. The first episode was titled The Power of Dr. Octopus and involved Octavius kidnapping Betty Brant and Spider-Man in an attempt to attack the city. The rest of the series focused on Peter's job at the Daily Bugle. J. Jonah Jameson plays a prominent role in the show, and Betty Brant is the closest thing we have to a love interest. Aunt May only appears in 1 episode this season, titled Horn of the Rhino. The season has many aspects that stay true to the comics, even including episodes that are beat for beat like their comic book counterparts. Other episodes take their own liberties. For example, the series finale, titled Trick or Treachery, introduces the human Fly Twins, characters who don't exist in the comics. After season 1, Grand Trey Lawrence Animation went bankrupt. ABC renewed Spider-Man for a second season, but Grand Trey Lawrence was unable to continue with the series. After Grand Trey Lawrence backed down from the show, Krantz Films was left to pick up the pieces. While the first season had a campy charm to its episodes, season 2 took a huge tonal shift. The first few episodes were grounded, but still more character-driven at first. The season's core story was a prequel to the previous season, even beginning with an origin to the character. However, as the season went on, the show took a darker turn. Weirder, more dreamlike stories were introduced. The budget was also a step down from the first season. Gone were the days of clean animation. In came reused shots and characters with barely any movement whatsoever. It meant animation errors galore. Another show on at that time was Rocket Robin Hood. Rocket Robin Hood was also produced by Krantz Films and written by Ralph Bakshi, who also happened to be a writer on Spider-Man. In a desperate cost-saving decision, Kranz decided to recycle footage from Rocket Robin Hood to use in an episode of Spider-Man. The episode Phantom from the Depths of Time was almost a complete carbon copy of Rocket Robin Hood. With the exception of the Kingpin, barely any villains from this season were from the comics, and most of the season's core story was out of the ordinary. However, despite this, the finale to Cage a Spider was very similar to The Amazing Spider-Man number 65, but without the Vulture. This season also changed its format from 2 segments in one episode to 1 half-hour-long story. Peter had multiple different girlfriends from episode to episode, most of which were written to be more mysterious to fit the shift in tone. The Daily Bugle also took a back seat while Aunt May appeared in more episodes. The 3rd season would end up being the final season of the show as well. The show would continue with its unique sci-fi horror-esque tone, but the budget would get even lower, leading to fewer story opportunities. The show would bring back traditional villains while also recycling more Rocket Robin Hood footage for another episode. The season also tried to recycle footage from past episodes as much as they could, even remaking episodes from the other 2 seasons. In fact, the series finale, Trip to Tomorrow, was a clip show with Spider-Man telling a young boy of past events in his life. The season was also notable for including Mary Jane Watson in the episode The Big Brain Washer. One major change from the comics had her as the niece to Captain George Stacy, with no mention of Gwen. Also, MJ served as a friend to Peter rather than a love interest. At first, the season tried to go back to its previous 2 segments per episode tradition before eventually returning to the 1 half-hour long routine. Though I haven't been able to find much in regards to why the show was cancelled, I suspect the declining budget could have played a part. The Spider-Man 60s cartoon, for better or for worse, is a product of its time. As said earlier, the first season had a very happy-go-lucky camp to it. Season 2 and 3, on the other hand, went for a weirder Planet of the Apes feel. In my opinion, Season 1 is the best of the 3 seasons, but in order to sit through it, you must accept that you aren't watching an Emmy-winning masterpiece, but rather a dated adaptation with writing that's on par with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. While I will commend the 2nd and 3rd seasons for going in a bolder route, it sadly is a route that didn't feel like Spider-Man in any way. Despite this, the show's legacy still shines true, with the glorious memes and a theme song that became central to the character's identity. Because of this, I'm giving the Spider-Man 60s cartoon a 5 out of 10. Anyways, in the 1970s, there were no Spider-Man animated shows, but there was a Spider-Woman show, and no, despite my love for the character of Jessica Drew, I won't be doing a review for that series. In the 70s, there was more interest in making live-action Spider-Man shows like The Amazing Spider-Man, that really weird Electric Company Spider-Man, and the even weirder Toei Spider-Man, which led to Super Sentai, which led to my favorite childhood show, Power Rangers. In my next video, I'll be reviewing the next Spider-Man animated series, the 1981 Spider-Man show. Finally, James Monroe, no, not the President James Monroe, I mean a follower of mine from Instagram, asked me to rank all the Spider-Man animated shows from worst to best. I won't be doing that until after I finish reviewing all the series, but I will eventually do that.